that I had looked through the contract and was like, this is ironclad. You're never getting out of this.
Picture a 13-year-old girl on stage, out singing grown women, making Billboard history. Now picture that same girl, at 22, sitting in her apartment, voice still flawless, with nothing to release and no way out. She was 13 years old when Leave Get Out hit #1, making her the youngest solo artist to ever top the Billboard pop chart.
So when I was 12, when I was 11, we moved to California from Massachusetts, met some people, signed the first deal, and then the album came out when I was 13. So, you know, I'd been doing a lot of things up till then, TV shows and plays and things like that.
JoJo wasn't just talented, she was a phenomenon, a voice that could rival Whitney Houston trapped in a middle schooler's body. The world was hers. Record deals, movie roles, sold-out tours. Then her labels stopped answering her calls. For nearly a decade, JoJo disappeared, not because she wanted to, but because the contract she signed as a child became a prison.
2 years that I was working on the album and nothing had happened. Me and my team were looking for an out. The lawyer that I had looked through the contract and was like, this is ironclad. You're never getting out of this.
We literally had litigators and attorneys tell her, you need to find a plan B because you're probably never going to be able to be a part of this industry again in a way that you're used to.
This isn't a story about losing talent. This is about an industry that exploits children and then throws them away when they're no longer profitable. December 20th, 1990, Brattleboro, Vermont. That's when Joanna Noel Levesque entered the world. Born to Diana Lynn Levesque, née Blagden, a church soloist and theater performer, and Joel Maurice Levesque.
I grew up south of Boston in Foxborough, a small town. It was a very humble upbringing, I would say. Really just my mom and I. We shared a room. I would see my dad on the weekends with some frequency. My mom was cleaning houses for a living, and she has an amazing voice. She was the soloist at our Catholic church, St. Mary's.
Her parents divorced when she was just 4 years old, and JoJo was raised primarily by her mother in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Diana worked as a cleaning lady and sang for churches to make ends meet, often bringing young JoJo along to performances.
As a parent, I'm the only one protecting her and making sure she doesn't work too many hours. In the music industry, there's no watchdog. So there has to be somebody protecting that child or they'll run them into the ground.
JoJo started singing at age 2, not humming or making noise, actually singing.
I've been singing since I was 2, and it was always a dream of mine.
I couldn't talk when I was 2.
I was just starting to talk when I was 2. So, I mean, they pretty much came hand in hand. I'd always listened to music, even when I was in my mother's stomach. I mean, she was always playing music in the house. And it just became something that I knew I wanted to do as soon as I realized that that was an option to be a singer as a career.
She'd imitate nursery rhymes, R&B, jazz, and soul music with a precision that was unsettling in someone so young. Her mother recognized immediately that this wasn't normal childhood behavior. This was a gift. Diana exposed JoJo to the greats: Whitney Houston, Etta James, Aretha Franklin, Ella Fitzgerald. JoJo absorbed everything, studying these legends like textbooks.
There was always music playing in the house, and I just always felt compelled to sing. I was trying to impersonate what I heard, so I would try to sound like Aretha Franklin or Whitney Houston. My little tiny voice would try to sound like that.
By age 7, JoJo was performing publicly, and at one audition for Kids Say the Darndest Things, she impressed producers so much they put her on the spot. No callbacks, no waiting. She appeared on the show and at Bill Cosby's request performed Aretha Franklin's Respect for the audience. The response was overwhelming. Suddenly, calls were pouring in. Oprah Winfrey wanted her on her show. The Republican National Convention invited her to perform. The Boston Celtics had her sing. Rosie O'Donnell booked her. JoJo was everywhere, and she was still in elementary school. The breakthrough moment came at the 2001 Gospel Fest, where 7-year-old JoJo brought an entire crowd to its feet. People were crying, standing, screaming, not because it was cute that a kid could sing, but because this kid could really sing. The voice coming out of her was impossible, otherworldly. She auditioned for America's Most Talented Kids in 2003 and didn't win. She lost to Diana DeGarmo, who would later become an American Idol finalist.
Ma, let's just go out there. And we packed up everything and moved. We stayed in La Habra Heights with my mom's cousin, had absolutely zero connections. My mom read a book called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business. And that's really all you can do at that time as far as protecting yourself. We didn't know where else to look, and we didn't know any lawyers. We didn't know any people that could really help us navigate. I did this thing called America's Most Talented Kids.
But losing didn't matter. At that competition, JoJo met James Womack, who introduced her to an executive at DeFamily Entertainment. The connections led to multiple contract offers, and eventually JoJo signed with Blackground Records, a decision that would define and nearly destroy her career.
But there was a man in the audience who came up to us. I was bawling my eyes out, and he came and found me and my mom and was like, I think your daughter is really special, and here's my card. Call me tomorrow. And that changed my life.
Before her single even dropped, JoJo was touring with Usher, the prince of R&B himself.
I opened up for Usher. That was my first tour.
She was learning from the best, performing for massive crowds, and preparing for her debut. When Leave, Get Out finally released in 2004, it went directly to #1 on the Billboard pop chart. JoJo was 13 years old, the youngest solo artist to ever achieve that milestone. The song was everywhere: radio, MTV, school dances, everywhere. Her self-titled debut album, JoJo, was released in 2004 and went platinum. She wasn't a one-hit wonder. She was the real deal, a generational talent with the voice, the look, and the star power to dominate for decades. Hollywood came calling. She starred in Aquamarine 2006 alongside Emma Roberts,
who will change their lives forever.
We just call and hang up.
and RV 2006 with Robin Williams. She was building an empire. Music, movies, endorsements. JoJo was on track to become the next Beyoncé or Christina Aguilera. Disney offered her the lead role in Hannah Montana. JoJo turned it down. Years later, watching the show turn Miley Cyrus into a global superstar, people asked if she regretted the decision. JoJo said no, though it's hard to imagine that's completely true. Hannah Montana would have changed her life, but JoJo was focused on being taken seriously as an artist, not playing a character. In 2006, JoJo released her second album, The High Road, featuring the hit single Too Little Too Late. The song peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and showcased JoJo's growth. She was 16, but sounding more mature, more confident, more ready for superstardom. Then, everything stopped. Blackground Records, the label that discovered her and launched her career, lost its distribution deal.
At a certain point, my label was no longer a functioning record label. They lost their distribution. They were getting sued left and right. I recorded hundreds of songs, wrote hundreds of songs. They didn't come out. And it felt like I was banging my head into a wall because I'm like, is anybody ever gonna hear this? It felt so insane.
Without distribution, they couldn't release music, but they still owned JoJo's contract. She was trapped, unable to release new music, unable to sign with another label, unable to move forward. The years started passing: 2007, 2008, 2009. JoJo kept recording, kept writing, kept working, but nothing could be released. She was in what she'd later describe as musical limbo, a ghost in an industry that had moved on without her. JoJo watched her peers, Rihanna, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, dominate the charts with the kind of success that should have been hers.
People that opened for me, coming up and starting their careers and surpassing me, it was so incredibly upsetting.
She watched new artists debut and surpass her. She watched the industry forget she existed. The girl who'd been everywhere at 13 was nowhere at 20. Fans noticed. They started the hashtag #FreeJojo movement on social media, demanding that Blackground release her from the contract. But labels don't care about Twitter hashtags. They care about money and control. Blackground wouldn't let her go, but they also wouldn't release her music. It was creative suffocation disguised as business. JoJo has spoken about how devastating this period was. She felt like she'd lost ownership of her voice, couldn't work on projects without approval that never came. couldn't be the artist she'd trained her entire life to be.
I didn't own my voice because oftentimes in contracts like the one I signed, you relinquish control over your recorded voice.
The legal battle consumed years of her life, years that should have been her commercial peak. She was fighting to reclaim a career that had been stolen by the contract she'd signed as a child.
I signed this contract when I was 12. This is no longer a functioning record label. They don't have an office anymore. And my family was like, "Jo, just go to college. Like, this industry, get out of it. Like, you're a smart girl. You know, you could go get a degree and do whatever you want." I'm like, I couldn't imagine actually doing that. If I don't really give this my all, I'll never forgive myself. I moved forward with filing the first lawsuit. They were going to try to bleed me dry and see how long I could go before I would give up.
Finally, in 2014, salvation came through an obscure New York law about personal service contracts for minors. The law stated that contracts signed by minors couldn't extend beyond a certain period. JoJo's lawyers used this statute to break her free from Blackground Records. After nearly a decade of silence, JoJo was finally released. She immediately signed with Atlantic Records and got back to work.
That same day that I was released from my contract with Blackground, I signed to Atlantic Records, and within the next couple months, got right back into the studio and started working on music because I just wanted to make up for lost time.
In 2015, JoJo released the mixtape #LoveJo and re-recorded her first 2 albums because Blackground still owned the masters. She wanted fans to have access to those songs on streaming platforms, so she literally re-sang every track from JoJo and The High Road. It was a bold move, reclaiming her catalog one note at a time. Her comeback single, Say Love, showcased a more mature artist who'd survived industry hell and emerged stronger. She followed with the album Mad Love in 2016, which debuted in the top 10 of the Billboard 200. JoJo was back, but the question remained. Could she recapture the momentum she'd lost during those silent years?
And my moment in this window, and that's kind of what was being impressed upon me. When I was getting ready to put out my first album in a long time, I couldn't sell this bad comeback thing that I was supposed to. I wasn't available to do that. It wasn't true.
In 2020, JoJo released Good to Know, an album that was deeply personal and showcased her evolution as a songwriter and vocalist. Critics praised it, but commercially, it didn't reach the heights of her early work. The industry had changed. Streaming had replaced radio, TikTok stars were becoming overnight sensations. JoJo was a veteran in an industry that worships youth. But JoJo's story wasn't just about the legal battles. In her 2024 memoir, Over the Influence, she revealed the personal struggles that accompanied her professional trauma.
My label actually at the time put me with a nutritionist because they thought they were doing the right thing for my career. They were like, you need to look a certain way to sell this music. And I was like, you know what? I don't want anybody to think that I'm not a hard worker, that I don't take my career seriously. So in that spirit, I was like, I'm down. Let's do it. I'll the chopped strawberries in my purse. I'll bring my own spray salad dressing. Right. If I need to go out, I'll get the 5 ounces of chicken. Like I was, doing the things. And the unfortunate thing is that that was par for the course, particularly back then.
She wrote about experiencing a binge eating disorder, the result of industry pressure to maintain a certain image and body type.
I ended up getting put with a nutritionist that had me on a 500 calorie a day diet, and I was on these injections that make you have no appetite. And I was like, let me see how skinny I can get, because maybe then they'll put out an album. Maybe I'm just so disgusting that no one wants to see me in a video and that they can't even look at me.
She discussed what she called a full-blown addiction to love, validation, sex, and stimulation. JoJo admitted to cheating on her boyfriend at the time, professional soccer player Freddie Adu, with one of his friends. The confession was raw and honest, detailing how her desperate need for validation led her to make choices she wasn't proud of. She explored the darker sides of her relationships and herself, refusing to sanitize her story for palatability. The memoir was therapeutic, but also controversial. Readers weren't used to child stars being this honest about their messy humanity. We want redemption narratives where people overcome obstacles and emerge perfect. JoJo gave us truth instead. Ugly, complicated, human truth about a woman who spent her adolescence and young adulthood trying to recover from being exploited as a child. JoJo's father, Joel Maurice Levesque, died on November 14, 2015, at 60 years old. JoJo has spoken little publicly about their relationship, but his passing came during her comeback period, adding another layer of emotional complexity to her already difficult journey.
Because I felt like I would really, really break down, and it just wouldn't have been a good thing. And I know that my dad was so proud of me and wanted me to perform.
In her personal life, JoJo was engaged to actor Dexter Darden, best known for his role in the Maze Runner franchise. They seemed happy, posting loving tributes and couple photos, but in 2022, they called off their engagement. Another ending, another loss, another chapter closed. Currently, in January 2025, JoJo released her NGL EP and is starring as Satine in the Broadway production of Moulin Rouge, one of the most demanding roles in modern musical theater.
My EP, NGL, which is not gonna lie, and it is so good. I just think people should listen to it.
She's singing Elton John Fong's 8 shows a week, proving that her voice, after everything it's been through, is still extraordinary. Broadway represents a new phase of her career, one where she's celebrated for her talent rather than her age or her comeback story. As of 2025, JoJo's net worth is estimated at around $7 million. It's respectable, but it's a fraction of what it should be. If her career hadn't been derailed for a decade, if she'd been able to release music throughout her 20s like her peers, she'd likely be worth tens of millions. The background records situation didn't just steal her momentum, it stole her wealth-building years. There have been no major scandals beyond what she's disclosed herself. JoJo hasn't been arrested, hasn't had public meltdowns, hasn't destroyed relationships with industry figures. Her biggest controversy is being honest about her struggles: eating disorders, validation addiction, infidelity, which shouldn't be controversial, but is when you're expected to be a role model. She's been open about supporting various charitable organizations, using her platform for good despite having every reason to be bitter about how the industry treated her.
First of all, I could understand myself and my life a little bit more. And if there might be things that I could share with other people, particularly younger people who might be interested in the music industry or want to get involved and not deal with some of the things that I dealt with professionally and personally.
She's mentored young artists, warned them about predatory contracts, and advocated for better protections for child performers. Looking ahead, JoJo seems focused on artistic fulfillment over commercial dominance. Broadway, independent music releases, memoir writing, she's building a career on her own terms, free from the constraints that nearly destroyed her. At 34 years old, she's still young enough to have decades of career ahead, but wise enough to know that success isn't just about chart positions and platinum plaques. The tragedy of JoJo's story is that we'll never know what she could have become if Blackground Records hadn't silenced her. We'll never know if she would have been as big as Beyoncé, as influential as Rihanna, as ubiquitous as Taylor Swift. Her prime years were stolen, and you can't get those back. The momentum you lose in your 20s as an artist is nearly impossible to recapture. But here's what we do know. JoJo survived. The industry tried to break her, and she refused to break. The label tried to silence her, and she fought for nearly a decade to reclaim her voice. The pressure tried to destroy her mentally and physically, and she's still here, still singing, still creating, still being honest about the cost of being a child star in an industry that eats children alive. She was the youngest solo artist to top the charts. She had the voice of a generation. She should have been one of the biggest stars in the world. Instead, she became a cautionary tale about why children shouldn't sign contracts they can't understand, why the music industry needs better protections for young artists, why success at 13 doesn't guarantee anything at 23. JoJo didn't get the career she deserved, but she got something more valuable: her freedom, her truth, and her voice back. She's still singing, still fighting, still refusing to be silenced. And maybe that's the victory that matters most. Not the one that makes headlines or breaks records, but the one where you survive the industry's worst and keep creating anyway. The prodigy who was silenced became the survivor who refused to disappear. That's not just a comeback. That's a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, to rebuild, to sing even when the world tries to steal your voice. JoJo's story isn't over. It's just beginning again, on her terms this time.